You probably didn't notice it at first. You were trying to beat ante 4, or figure out what a flush meant in poker. Maybe you unlocked a few jokers, hit a big hand, and told yourself, okay, one more run. And then you blinked and it was 7 hours later. Balatro is brilliant. It isn't just a deck building game, it's a system. One that's been carefully engineered to keep you addicted. That said, brilliance and manipulation aren't opposites. In fact, they often go hand in hand. Psychologist Adam Atler breaks this all down in his book, Irresistible, The Rise of Addictive Technology and the Business of Keeping Us Hooked. He describes the 6 ingredients of addiction. Compelling goals that are just beyond reach, irresistible and unpredictable positive feedback, a sense of incremental progress and improvement, tasks that become slowly more difficult over time, unresolved tensions that demand resolution, and strong social connections. Now, when we think of addiction, our minds go to the usual suspects, things you inject, smoke, or drink. But the most effective addictions today aren't chemical. They're digital, designed, normal. In modern life, you don't overdose. You refresh, you click, you deal another hand. And the worst part is, you probably don't even call it addiction. Not when it rewards you for thinking, not when you're winning, not when it's packaged as a video game. Addiction, in its modern context, is psychological. And it thrives in systems that look harmless, systems like Balatro. And we're gonna start with the first thing you probably felt. The rush, the dopamine burst, the screen shaking after a 4 of a kind. We're starting with feedback. You start to notice it after a few runs. The way the cards bounce when they land, the way they snap into place with just enough resistance, place it on top of another and they jump, animated just enough to signal interaction.
Corpse of load controlled our lives.
A small window pops up telling you exactly what the card does. Every action in Balatro is met with feedback. Click a button and the screen jolts, trash a card and it burns away, visually, audibly, viscerally. Transitions between menus and rounds flow cleanly, never stalling your momentum. From a young age, humans are driven to learn. And learning involves getting as much feedback as possible from the immediate environment. Feedback in the form of lights or sounds or any change in the state of the world is pleasurable. In this context, feedback refers to any immediate perceivable response from the environment that tells us the results of our actions. Drag a card and it moves with you, tilting based on the position of your mouse. It's smooth, reactive, physical. It creates the feeling of weight without needing any. Even the card packs, tarot, planet, spectral, they shine dynamically as your cursor moves past them, reflecting light like physical objects in a real space. Then comes the play. You lay down your hand and the scoring begins. 15, 25, 50, 120 times 13. It's all paced out step by step. You're never dumped with a number, you watch it build. Then comes the money. Count it up coin by coin. Just slow enough to feel rewarding, just fast enough not to interrupt flow. A cash out button appears, daring you to press it, timed perfectly to test your impulse. And if you don't just win, but overkill the score ceiling in one hand, the counter catches flame. It doesn't happen every round, but that's part of why it hits so hard. It's a payoff, but an unpredictable one. Progress gets tallied just as cleanly. +1 to blind, +1 to ante. New difficulty, new stakes, but the sounds are the same. The rhythm is identical. Even as you approach a boss blind, the background color shifts. It's not just aesthetic, it's tension. Even the music changes. And you feel it. Somewhere in all that, cards bouncing, numbers flying, coins counting, you stop noticing how many systems are speaking to you at once, because the feedback is doing exactly what it's supposed to, making you feel good for playing. Addictive behavior produces the same brain responses that follow drug abuse. In both cases, several regions deep inside the brain release dopamine, which produce an intense flush of pleasure. You see the same effect in slot machines. Each spin isn't just about winning, it's about the lights, the sounds, the slow reveal. A near miss feels almost better than a win. The system's designed not to pay out consistently, but to have us respond consistently. That's the trick. The reward is actually secondary. The feedback itself is the hook. Balatro works the same way. It doesn't just tell you when you've done well. Even in failure, it makes sure that you feel it. When I downloaded Balatro on my phone, I was technically starting from scratch. My PC copy had nearly every unlock, but my phone had no unlocked jokers, no extra decks, just the base mechanics. And the wild part is, it felt harder. After playing the game on my desktop, I got better at the game. My hands were smarter, I was more efficient, but my runs on the iPhone weren't nearly as strong. That's when I realized something. Balatro doesn't just get easier as you improve, it gets easier because the game lets you improve. In Irresistible, Adler highlights a sense of incremental progress and improvement as a core ingredient of behavioral addiction. In Balatro, the deeper you go, the more the game opens up. New jokers, new mechanics, more broken synergies. You're not actually building skill, you're being handed tools. Slowly, strategically. In those early runs, when you don't have all those unlocks, you miss the score ceiling by 20 chips, or you run out of hands right before the final blind. And it's because you're supposed to. These near-miss moments aren't failures on your part, it's a predetermined progression that Balatro disguises as a challenge. It's not about winning every time, it's about almost winning. It's about feeling like you've always just been one tool away from that victory. One joker, one synergy, one better run. The answer is that if you want to compel people to act, you whittle down overwhelming goals into smaller goals that are concrete and easier to manage. He compares it to how Parkinson's patients relearn to walk. They practice by stepping over visual obstacles. They aren't taking large physical hurdles, but small, bite-sized challenges like stepping over a cane. And that small action kickstarts a chain of behavior that regains their ability to walk again. Like small hurdles to a Parkinson's patient, goals often inspire action because they become fixation points. The trick of Balatro isn't winning, it's moving just enough to believe that the next step is yours. Early on, the game doesn't clearly want you to lose, but it doesn't want you to win easily either. It wants you to almost win, just enough to feel progression. And when you do finally break through, it feels earned. But part of that victory wasn't just you getting better, it was about the game loosening its grip. And if you want proof, just look at how the progression is structured. You start with a tiny joker pool. They have to be unlocked over time, meaning early runs are capped not by your decisions, but by what the game allows to exist. You might finish a hand and feel like, if I just had one more synergy, you are almost there. And the game knows it. Even the game's decks are gate-kept. You begin with a basic red deck. If you want to play more specialized strategies like the Ghost deck or the Abandoned deck, you need to beat the game under specific conditions. Until then, your build potential is locked behind deliberate walls. The result is this constant undercurrent of the same feeling. You're close, you're improving, you're about to break through, and then you lose by just enough to keep believing that you could have made it. And it doesn't stop there. Entire card decks like Spectral, Planet Tarot, they're also gated. They only show up once you've reached specific milestone. These packs include cards that change the logic of the game itself, adding curses, blessings, deck manipulation, long-term scaling. If you're playing your first few runs, you simply don't have access to those systems. And even when the game does unlock something, it rarely tells you what you got. New jokers are slipped into the pool without fanfare. You start seeing cards you've never seen before, and it feels like you've discovered them. But that discovery was placed there, on purpose, after you hit a milestone that the game decided was enough. It makes you feel like you're unraveling this deep system, but what you're doing is walking a designed, manipulated path that only feels like freedom. The game isn't making you fail, it's making you almost win. And that's what keeps you here. The frustration isn't a bug, it's the feeling that defines the loop. That's what makes it addictive. Not just difficulty, not just mastery, but the feeling that your success is always just slightly ahead of you. Close enough to chase, but far enough to stay hungry. One of the most effective psychological tricks Balatro plays is how it introduces difficulty. The score requirements go up, you're given the same number of hands, but suddenly the hands you used to trust, the fleshes, the four of a kinds, they don't carry you as far. What used to feel strong now feels insufficient. And in endless mode, this ramps up even further. The game is over, you won, and then it keeps going. No reward screen, no end credits, just another round. The rules haven't changed, but the expectations have. You're no longer chasing a win, you're surviving a system that's decided you can continue if you can keep up. A hand that once cleared a round with 10,000 points now needs 100,000, then 250, then 500,000. Your multiplier stopped feeling impressive. The same synergy that carried you through the early rounds now barely makes a dent. But it doesn't feel like the difficulty is rising, it feels like you're slipping. And that's what makes it powerful. Adler refers to this dynamic in his book Irresistible, where he describes one of the 6 ingredients of behavioral addiction as tasks that become slowly more difficult over time. The game doesn't knock you over, it raises the floor beneath you. And because it rises gradually, you don't notice how high you're standing. You just feel a little more pressure, a little more urgency. Not enough to feel overwhelmed, it's just enough to engage you deeper. Even the blinds evolve. Early on they're manageable, maybe a small penalty, but then comes blinds like the needle, which give you one hand to win or you lose instantly. Or the tooth, which drains your money with every card you play, forcing you to finish quickly. Or the arm, which decreases the level of the poker hand you invested so much time ranking up. These modifiers have transformed into disruptions. They override your momentum, introduce sudden rules, and force you to pivot mid-run. You're not just building hands anymore, you're solving problems in real time. And it all happens just slowly enough to feel manageable. You don't hit a wall, you don't rage quit, you just lose. It's unfair, but only by a margin, by a hair. One more hand, one better joker, one stronger synergy, and that's where the trap is set in. It's not about how the game gets harder, it's about how you're pulled deeper without noticing. When you lose, it doesn't feel like design, it feels natural, like a close miss, not a rigged outcome, like something you should have been able to beat. You're still in control, but the space for control is shrinking, and you'll keep playing to prove that you can still manage it. Because the game doesn't like saying that you can't, it just raises the bar one more pixel at a time, until you don't realize how high you've climbed. And by the time you do, you're not planning to stop, you're just planning how to win. Your brain's still running numbers, but now it's running fantasies. What if I had saved that joker? What if I had drawn a planet card instead? What if I tried the blue deck next time? This is what Adler calls one of the most powerful ingredients of behavioral addiction: unresolved tensions that demand resolution. You start to remember hands you didn't play, runs that never happened. You find yourself thinking about card combos in the shower, replaying losses while trying to sleep, mentally sorting jokers during conversations you're barely present for. You're not just calculating, you're craving. You're dreaming about possibilities you haven't even unlocked yet. The game never gives you closure, it gives you a gap and then dares you to close it. And Balatro? Balatro hasn't moved. It's been here the whole time, watching you try, letting you hope, smiling, laughing at you. Balatro is dangerously good at pulling you into its loop. It hijacks your focus, teases your progress, makes every loss feel like it was almost a win. But there's one element of addiction it hasn't played, and that's the reason it hasn't taken full control. Strong social connections. Don't explain that 3 features draw people into online games: immersion, achievement, and the social element. The third, and by far the most important, is the social element. Right now, Balatro doesn't have that. There are no leaderboards, no chat boxes, no one spectating your runs, no avatars, no one to race, outplay, or impress. And that might be the only reason you're not playing it right now. Because once social features are in place, the game isn't just a game anymore. It becomes a performance, a way of feeling visible so you don't fall behind your friends, and your identity, your worth, it gets tied to how well you play it. Imagine seeing your friend's broken joker combo break the game, and realizing yours never will. Imagine them unlocking a new deck right before you, and you feel the pressure to catch up. Imagine losing a run, then seeing someone else post the exact same hand that you failed, except they pulled it off. It doesn't just add to the addiction, it multiplies. So before this ends, ask yourselves, has Balatro successfully tricked me into this addiction loop? And if so, is that a bad thing? Personally, Balatro was one of the most fun games I've played in a while, and the way it had me hooked was incredibly immersive. In this video, we talked about how the game pulls psychological levers, how it plays with feedback, tension, and the illusion control, but maybe, sometimes, we want to be tricked. Maybe books like Irresistible aren't just warnings. Maybe they're also recipes for how future developers can build games that pull us so completely that for hours we can take a break from the world around us.